Good afternoon. There she is.
Hello.
Hello,
What
world.
afternoon is it?
Thursday. At
I
least,
thought it was Monday.
at least in our part of the world.
Weeks go so fast, which is fine because there's lots of cool stuff going on.
You're getting
And we
younger
have some
too.
pretty. I'm getting younger. It's nice. This nice natural light is really helpful. And my hair's shorter, which helps. Your hair's shorter too.
It is a little shorter. High speed, low drag. That's what we're going for.
Well, let's give it a couple minutes to get people on. So this is gonna be 20 minutes tops. Let's just do a little warm up here for a couple minutes. We bring people on. If you can't watch this, obviously this is a live in our group. You're able to watch this at another time. Skelly says agrees. So the nice thing about this is it'll stay on it forever, and we create content from these videos because the content that we're talking about is stuff that we put on our website, YouTube, and spread it out to all the business owners that we work with.
Yep. So what are we talking about today? This is far more in your wheelhouse than mine. We'll get to top 5, but just maybe the reason why.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting in physical therapy world and in school, and I've listened to other physical therapists talk on podcasts and health professionals. They always talk about staying in their lane. And mental health is always a thing that, when it comes up, it's like, well, that's not my lane. And I kind of want to break down those barriers of, no, it is your lane, everyone's lane, because mental health is invested in everything, in everything. And it's whether you're a coach or a medical doctor, physical therapist, acupuncturist, parent, you should be mindful of business owner, you should be mindful of mental health and the benefits of movement for improving your mental health, because there's a lot that you can do. And that doesn't negate, seeking help from a mental health specialist. However, because we're on the preventative side of things, the lines of our scope are more gray, because we know through research, and this is what we're going to present today, that through movement it can help so much in your life. And I think mental health, because people don't like to talk about it, we like to talk about it.
It's interesting that, so from my perspective, as the business side of things, I see healthcare professionals, and we've tried doing a lot of things over the years, or looked into doing a lot of different things over the years, that my training is here and I'm comfortable here and I'm not licensed for that, so I will not look at that, but I'll refer it over. But so much gets lost in translation. And mental health is something that it's invisible, hard to see, hard to even describe in some cases. And I think that lends itself to being very difficult in our current healthcare model to tackle. Like you said, I've heard you talk about it, and some of our other therapists, or all of our other therapists over time, talk about where just by the nature of you have these one-on-one sessions with folks, you're working on a shoulder or a back or a movement pattern, but inevitably these topics come up just by nature of you're a health professional and people are sharing with you. And so it's been interesting over time to see how it's gone from just, why am I always getting these conversations in my physical therapy visits, to what can I do about it? And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so in physical therapy, the one-on-one, whether you're doing one-on-one or we do a lot of group work, you see some of the same patterns. People, are vulnerable because they have an injury, and therefore it affects different aspects of their life. It affects their sleep. It affects, what they think about themselves, their overall body image. And there's a plethora of things that happen when someone's injured. And then, let alone in a company, when we work with companies, there's the social dynamic of stress at work. I got to do more. And now I have a back pain, and now I can't handling my stress, I can't move because I have back pain. I shouldn't move because that's what I've been told. And so it kind of creates this pattern, this abnormal mood pattern in your brain, which causes depression and or anxiety. So depression is usually past, anxiety is future stuff. Could be both, typically. And the fact that 1 in 4 Americans are struggling with depression or anxiety, and depression is the leading cause of disability in the world now, it's something that you can't not pay attention to, and you should talk about. And the interesting thing is, in the wellness world that we're in now, in corporate wellness, is that, it's people, so many vendors try to throw programs, biometric screening on companies, when really the company needs is stress management tactics, and not more yoga classes or more strength classes or biometric screenings. They need to learn how to cope, and therapeutic movement can be part of the coping, but helping people learn that they have a lot of power over their own mental health too, is where it starts. So anyway, it's exciting. Well, it's exciting because there's power over.
I was also excited that so you wrote a book that kind of talked about that a couple of years, 2016. Me as just a average American dude.
Highly above average than the American.
Thank you.
Way above average.
Flattery gets her everywhere. But I say that from the standpoint of just understanding mental health. So a couple of years ago, right over my head, didn't really understand it, had never seen it. Thankfully, I've never had to personally struggle with some of those things for whatever reason. But just becoming more aware, and it's been not just because of the recency effect or primacy effect and those psychological principles, but it's in the last couple of years, in part because of veterans coming home from Afghanistan and Iraq. It's become a much bigger conversation, and it's moving to the forefront, which is exciting. We see it also professional athletes are coming out and talking about mental health issues and sharing, hey, this is what I go through. And I think that, in a way, also is at least pushing the conversation forward. And it may not be providing solutions just yet, but at least people are paying attention more and more to something that is pretty pervasive, as Dr. T had referenced earlier. So, you want to talk about what we've learned?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Kick it off.
Do all five?
Let's do
top 5 things we've learned.
Do all 5.
Okay. So the first one is whether you're a coach, business owner, health professional, you cannot deny that it exists, so that you have to address it. So one thing you talked about is that you've never experienced it. It's invisible, so you're not going to see it. You might see it in someone's actions if you're good at picking up on those things, or you might not. I've give out questionnaires every time I do a program with companies, and people can look so happy and great to your face in front of you, but then their questionnaire, the questions you ask them, it shows that they're not coping well and they don't have good support network. So you cannot deny that it exists, and that therefore you need to address it. It needs to be a conversation, because the person in front of you, you don't know what kind of wounds, battles, patterns that they're in. So unless you start talking about it, you as a leader, kind of openly sharing and being vulnerable, your employees won't be open and vulnerable if you don't start. So that's one thing that is important. And like I said, 1 in 4 Americans struggle with depression and anxiety, and that's reported. The unreported are probably a lot more, because most people do not ask for help if they have a mental health condition until it's really, really bad. So that's 1 in 4 is probably more like 2.5 out of 4 people. And now you can't deny that with tech and the constant online world, that we're becoming less social beings because of social media. It's become more rampant. Yep. So number 2 is as a leader, if you're someone, who you just haven't paid attention to the fact that, I don't know if I have anxiety or depression, hopefully you don't, but the fact that you might not deal with it doesn't mean you shouldn't address it. Because people around you, you're a leader, so you need to start thinking about, how are you coping? Is your life, start taking a role, kind of a intake of your own life, and how are you doing in family situations? How are you doing at work? Could things be better? Of course, things could always be better. So how could they be better? And that will help you start to build empathy for the people around you that also may be struggling more than you. So whether you have it or don't, the way to build empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and taking a hard intake on your own life. If you really want to improve and go somewhere in your life, you got to really know yourself, know what you're about, or you're going to fall for anything. And you're going to miss all the signs of people struggling right in front of you. So the third one is mental stress, and this is a big one, manifests in the body. So when you feel tension in your mind, usually 99% of the time, your body will tighten too. The muscles, your nervous system will feel like there's a threat. So whether it's a trigger from an email, a trigger from a person, a situation, a memory, whatever it is, be in your body for a moment and you're going to feel your heart racing. You're going to feel your body tension. And those things, you could feel tightening, aching, nerve pain, headaches. All of those things are manifestations of mental stress. So the key is, though, you can heal the mind then through the body. If you learn how to calm your physiology, that tension, aches, headaches, it will help your mental state. That's the really powerful thing is you have panic attacks, you can now have control over your panic attacks. You have headaches, you can now have control over your headaches. The fourth thing is this thing called brain-derived neuropeptide factor, which is a big word. It's BDNF, and it is basically optimized. So it is optimized when you move. And what it does, it's like miracle grow for the brain. So it's going to help improve the mood circuit, the things that affect the mood circuits, which is the limbic system. You've got your amygdala, your hippocampus, your thalamus, your prefrontal cortex, dorsal and ventral, like all of those things in your brain, which affect mood, will be affected if you move through brain-derived neurotropic factor. So that's a really powerful thing, and we're going to link to the research on that. And then the fifth one is just those good old neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, like all of those neurotransmitters that you don't get enough of, that you need more of, will come out, will be released when you move, and when you're having good relationships, when you have a tribe. And so that's why movement can be so crucial. You might not tie it to mental health, but the more you move, the more these things that affect mood in the brain, which determines if there's a threat, will be decreased. So therefore, your mental health state will, over time, will be improved. But my suggestion is this, it's not a pill. Don't look for a pill for this. Mm-mm. It's a process. So give it 25 days of commitment to movement. But you gotta have fun when you move. So find a practice that is fun. Or find someone who is fun to train with for 25 days and get back to us on how much better you feel. Those are my 5.
Top 5, awesome. Well, just to put a little bit of context in this, so we've, at least for the things that I've feel like I've learned, is that so in our corporate wellness programs, we've measured movement health, subjective pain indices, as well as an emotional health outcome for the last 3 years. Everybody who's gone through the program has been tracked at each step, the beginning of each cycle and the end of each cycle. And so the data shows significant improvement across all those 3 domains. Now, most of this is a movement-focused program, but we understand that there are emotional and obviously pain components to that, and that's why we measure them. So down regulation, breath work, those types of things, strength development. Mm-hmm. But the data shows that the improvements happen just from focusing on what might, the hook is, hey, fix your back pain. By fixing your back pain, you're fixing a lot of other things downstream. Mm-hmm. That's just one example. So the top 5 lessons that I've learned from us providing our health programs that mix movement and mental health, starting with number 5. So small wins support self-confidence, right? It's like a goal. You have set up a goal. What's the first step or 2? And make it easy to get rolling, right? To create momentum. That self-confidence seems to reduce any negative self-talk patterns that, from an anxiety standpoint, from just a self-esteem standpoint, little wins, right? Just little wins help reduce that self-talk, confidence. Everybody likes to feel a little more confident. So that's what I've seen. Number 2, reduced pain levels correlate with improved emotional energy. So we see that in our data. So we see pain and disease come down, we see emotional energy output go up. So the depletion is far less when there's less pain. So the BDNF might be the factor. Maybe it's just pain is a stressor. You take a layer of stress away, it improves it reduces the emotional energy depletion that someone may face during a day, week, whatever. Number 3, focusing on a movement technique. For example, hey, is my glute med firing correctly? So these are the types of things, the types of cues that people go through on our program. Something that precise and kind of out of the ordinary, I think helps take people out of their own heads. And in so doing, focusing not on whatever patterns or rabbit holes or cycles are going on inside, but on a very specific physical feeling. And getting out of one's head, especially if you're anxious or depressed, is a significant thing, in my unprofessional opinion. Number 2 is that the work is done in a tribe, the outcomes are far better. So we've seen this when we compare our group programming to our individual programming. We see far better results across the spectrum of scores when it's done in a tribe. We're social beings, right? Whether it's just accountability, whether it's not allowing self-excuses to pop up, I don't know. But we do see the data show improvement that when done in a tribe, when done, even if it's a competitive dynamic or just a fun dynamic, the results are better. And the top one is that any program that mixes movement health with the intention of impacting mental health, there needs to be progression. So if you think about it, go too far too fast, it creates joint pain. Pain, like I mentioned earlier, is a stressor. That kind of slows the process down. It actually may keep people from stopping the movement patterning and the movement programming that was meant to help them in the first place. So it needs to be progressive. We tie this all together, something we call the Pyramid of Physical Freedom. We've blogged about it, and we'll put a link in the notes here to that article. But the point is that you work and create a progression for the movement program that you're on to optimize mental health outcomes. So those are my top 5 lessons learned from mixing movement and mental health. Doc,
All right.
what do you think about mine? You're far more expert at all this stuff than I ever will be. But
Well, that's the thing. You can be an expert in it because you're a business owner. So that's the challenge to all of you, is that for someone, I've done a ton of self-care, a lot of work, and the key is, as a business owner, you must build empathy for the people around you. That is how you meet people where they're at and give them what they need versus just what you think they need. It's listening, it's taking time to listen, it's taking time to observe, give out questionnaires on how people cope, looking at their perspective of pain, right? Because you could experience an injury and I could experience an injury or a situation when we deal with it completely different. So it's opening up your eyes to the fact that, no, if you've been through anything hard, then you know what mental struggle is. Looking around you, people do struggle with it, but there is power over thoughts. There is power over the mental stressors we put on ourselves daily. And we are often our own worst enemies. So I felt like yours were good. They were good. You're very comprehensive and go well with mine. Thank you.
And we didn't even talk about this ahead of time. So we got 1 minute left.
That's the beauty of this, is that we have a topic, I prepare, he prepares, and then we come together and share it with you all.
One of these times that's going to go off the rail, but it's worked well so far.
We have different skill sets too.
So last minute, 20-minute time cap. If there are any questions or thoughts from anybody listening,
You can put it in the comments.
add them to the comments. We'll be happy to respond if we have a response, or if it requires a response, or if you just have something you want to say. Feel free to do that. So both live, and then if you're listening to this after, go ahead and create a conversation. I think that's probably the best thing to start with when it comes to just mental health. And mental health, emotional health, for the purposes of this conversation, we're using those interchangeably. There are differences from a clinical standpoint, but we're not going to get into those weeds right now.
Yeah, if you want to learn how we use our movement programs with the plethora of companies we work with and why we're comfortable talking about mental health conditions, just reach out to us. Listen to this, reach out to us, share it. This topic will never go away. We're always going to need to talk about it.
It's getting more and more. It's more and more pervasive every year.
Yes. All right.
All right. 20 minutes, 30 seconds. We're done.
We'll see you next week, Thursday. If there are better times that you'd like that work better for you, whether it's before work or after work, send us the times. Put them in the comments.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.